So now we'll move on to the Series A, and the Series A is very similar to the Series B in how it's liquidated with a few key differences, mainly in the number of shares that are used to compute how much of the proceeds the Series A actually gets. So we'll go ahead and go through that. The first thing, Series A participation cap. I think that is essentially calculated the same way. So we'll say if I7, so now we're working off of Series A and not Series B, lock that in, equals 1, then get the cap table participation cap, and that is from Series A, not Series B. Otherwise 0. And we need to lock in the cap table here, cap table reference. Okay, max participation amount. So max participation amount is calculated the same way, I think. Oh no, this is actually a little different. This is a little bit different. So if the participation cap equals 0, then we're going to take the Series A shares and divide them by the number of shares left after Series B liquidation. So we've already removed all the Series B shares from contention, and we're now left with a smaller group of shares, so everyone has a greater ownership, and that's what we're calculating right here. So we're not going to work off of this ownership up here. We're going to work off of a different share total, which is calculated here, the shares left after Series B liquidation. So we take Series A shares, divide by shares left after Series B liquidation, and we multiply that times the residual left for others. So that would be the max participation amount now. Otherwise, if C28 doesn't equal 0, then we're going to take the participation cap and multiply it times the costs, just like we did earlier. Okay, and so the Series A as if converted is calculated just kind of like we just talked about. So we take the Series A shares, divide them by the shares left after Series B liquidation, and multiply that by the residual left for others. Still 0 because the residual for others is 0 right up above. So the Series A liquidation preference on multiple is calculated the exact same way as above. And so we'll say if C26, the residual per share, is less than D7, what was paid, and then if the C24, the residual for others, is less than F7, the liquidation preference dollar amount, then just give us what's left for others. Otherwise, give us our liquidation preference dollar amount. And then comma, close it out, then F7 to round out the formula. And that is right. So we need to go in and lock in F7 here, F7 here, F7 here, and D7. Okay, and so now we need to go into the Series A participation amount. The Series A participation amount is calculated just a little bit different. It still takes the new share total into account, and we do that by saying if it's participating, it equals 1, then choose the minimum, like we talked about above, of the max participation amount. And so say if max participation amount minus the Series A liquidation preference on multiple is less than 0, then 0, don't want a negative number. Otherwise, sorry, forgot a comma. Otherwise, take that Series A share total, divide it by the new share count, the new share total for the entire capitalization, and multiply that by the residual for others minus the liquidation preference on multiple. So we're accomplishing the same thing we did above in the Series B liquidation scenario. We're just accounting for a new share total. That is the main difference we are doing here. So we're basically eliminating all of the Series B shares and then dividing everything by the new share total so that we can continue bumping down that waterfall. So then we round that out with a 0 and we keep moving on. So the total Series A liquidation preference is very similar to what we did above. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can go in and copy this down just like that, because we don't reference any of the above cells. So you can just go in and copy that one down just like we talked about, and it works just like we did above. And the Series A proceeds is still that max calculation. So we want to take the max, so we want to say is the max of the liquidation preference, or if it converted to common, tell us the max there. And then the residual for others, so the residual for others is still the same. It is the residual for others here minus the total proceeds. So what's left after Series A? We know what's left after Series B. Right here it's 0 minus 0, still going to be 0. But if this was 50, there would be something there, right? So 0 there. So the shares left after the liquidation, that is just like we did above, but this time we're subtracting out the Series B shares and the Series A shares. So we want to say total shares minus Series B minus Series A. And then the residual per share is just like we did above, and it is the residual for others left by how many divided by how many shares are left. So that's a 0. So let's go in and lock in the correct cells like we've been doing. So we can drag it over. Lock in I7 and C32. Lock in B7 here. That's C32. And I think, okay, and this is C30. We need to do B7 and C30. Basically, I'm locking in any of the cells that are referencing a row number above 14. If that makes any sense. Anything below 14 is part of this waterfall. Anything above are cells that we're using to calculate. So I think that may have done it. Let's try and drag it over. Seems to be working correctly because we're still getting the same residuals per share way up here where everything is definitely converting to common. Everything's converting to common above 50 million because that's the post money that the Series B invested at. After that, we keep the shares as common. So that's kind of our check figure as of right now. So next video we'll do the Series Seed.